Good morning, guys. Well, I'm here at the location where Alex Preddy was shot and killed yesterday. As you can see behind me, there's a sort of makeshift memorial to Preddy. There are a number of people here who are visibly moved, visibly upset, visibly mourning. It is in fact a pretty moving sight. And what I'm asking myself being here is, to what extent are we going to see this community respond to what happened yesterday on the streets of Minneapolis in terms of people coming out to protest, people coming out to march? This is obviously something that we've seen a lot over the last couple of weeks. As we discussed earlier this morning, one important new factor in this is the deployment of the National Guard by Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Big question is how that National Guard deployment may or may not affect peaceful protests. Obviously, the National Guard cannot interfere in any kind of peaceful protest and any kind of lawful assembly, but we'll see if that either deters people or if they sort of physically prevent people from massing in large numbers. There's just one thing I want to show you guys, by the way, because it's kind of symbolic of everything that's happening here. This is, it's a whistle that I just picked up at a coffee shop nearby. A lot of local businesses have these, coffee shops, other kinds of local businesses, and they're a tool of the organized community response to the ICE and Border Patrol deployments in this city, and have also become sort of a symbol for this movement. People use them when they follow ICE around, when they monitor ICE. They blow these whistles to alert people in the community to the presence of federal immigration enforcement, to make sure they stay inside, make sure, people who might fear some kind of encounter with federal immigration enforcement, make sure they stay inside, draw attention to the agents. As you can see in all of the videos that we've seen of the killing of Alex Preddy, a number of people are blowing these whistles right on this block behind me before the fatal shooting. The response to what's been happening from the community here has been really remarkable in its breadth and its degree of organization, which I think is largely improvised. I mean, there has been infrastructure, social infrastructure, activist groups, community groups that have been present here, especially since the George Floyd uprisings in 2020. But those groups have really come together in a unified way in the last few weeks to respond to these incidents. And of course, Alex Preddy and Renee Good were to some degree involved in those movements. They were participating in these activities of kind of being out and putting themselves physically in the presence of federal immigration agents doing these indiscriminate roving patrols in this city. That's why there's such an intense response emotionally from the people in this community who have been involved in that kind of activism and that kind of organizing, guys.
David Noriega, thank you so much for your work on the ground. Please stay warm and safe. Joining us now, Minneapolis City Council President Elliot Payne and Minneapolis City Council Member Jamal Osman. Council Member Osman, I want to start with you and give you the opportunity to clear the record on a narrative that this administration has been putting forth about these legal observers, people who are engaging in First Amendment protected activities, as our colleague David Noriega was just describing. J.D. Vance tweeted last night that this level of engineered chaos is unique to Minneapolis. It's the direct consequence of far-left agitators working with local authorities. What's your reaction to that? Is this a conspiracy between local authorities and agitators? Or can you describe what exactly your constituents are doing right now?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I will tell you this. Our vice president came to our city and lied what we are witnessing on the street. What we are witnessing on the street is very peaceful protest, and we have been protesting. That is the only thing we have left. The killing of our residents by ICE pushed our city into crisis. Of course, Renee Good and Alex Preddy should be alive today. And the fact is the fact. What we see on the streets, what you see on the cameras is the fact. So you cannot twist that anyway a little bit.
Council President, I want to get your reaction to something we put up on the screen just a second ago. But this is a declaration, court declaration from an eyewitness to yesterday's shooting, where she writes, "I feel afraid. Only hours have passed since they shot a man right in front of me, and I don't feel like I can go home because I heard agents were looking for me. I don't know what the agents will do when they find me." City Council President, you were on our air after, I guess, last week or a couple of weeks ago when you got into your own confrontation with federal agents. Talk about the fear that person feels right now, and the fear that the community feels right now.
Well, I think the key word there is witness, and that's exactly what we're doing out in the streets every day. And it is the fear is palpable. I mean, in watching the murder of Alex Preddy, it's reminiscent of my own experience out there observing. It happens so fast. An agent comes up and just starts shoving you. In this instance, they completely piled on him. And I think one of the things that heightens this fear is the degree to which they are explicit in their violence, the degree to which they are explicit in saying, we're using facial recognition technology, we're adding you to a database, and the degree to which they are explicit in their lies and character assassination. They've already gone after our governor, they've gone after our mayor, our attorney general with legal consequences, and it feels like it's only a matter of time before they come after all of us.
Councilmember Osman, I think you both were at the protest that happened yesterday. I assume that you will continue to do that. It seems to me, and I've talked to some folks that live in Minneapolis and St. Paul, that the civic infrastructure that your city has been there for years, right? I think like maybe before 2020, but definitely after the George Floyd killing has kind of ramped up and seems organized, regular people coming out of their regular jobs and organizing when bad things like this happen. I saw David Noriega, our colleague, where coffee shops just have these whistles that people can pick up. So can you say more about how the civic infrastructure of Minneapolis has been, ready for something like this to happen?
Well, Minneapolis residents are very kind people. When my community was attacked by President Trump and called them a garbage, they were there for us. They were there with their whistles. They have been helping a lot of immigrants who are legal citizens, who are U.S. citizens that are not able to leave their homes or to go to work because they are afraid of getting stopped. So people are there and they gather and they care. They care about their community. Yesterday I was there and I saw the fear, I saw the panic, and I saw people running, of course, peacefully protesting, but they're being tear gassed a lot. And we have been experiencing this for weeks now.
Mr. Payne, at the recommendation of the Minneapolis police chief and out of an abundance of caution, Jacob Frey has made a request to Tim Walz for the Minnesota National Guard to come to the city, and Tim Walz has granted that. It's a little bit confusing, I think, for a lot of people to think about all of these different separate entities trying to work together. What do you hope to see from the National Guard and ways in which you think they can be constructive? And how, do you expect them and local law enforcement to ultimately work with ICE? Are these entities that are fighting against each other and simply raising the tensions that we're seeing?
Well, the question our community has is, who is the National Guard there to protect, and what are they there to protect? The fear is that the National Guard will simply turn their focus towards the residents of Minneapolis. The mayor has given reassurances that they are here, in support of our community, that they report to the governor and not to the president. But this is the fear that we're living under right now, is we have a hostile federal government in an era when everyone's trust in government at every level has never been lower. Frankly, this is a little bit of a full circle moment for me on a personal level. Jonathan, I think we first met back in 2017 when you were here for a criminal justice conference about Ferguson. And we were having conversations about the law and the DOJ and whether or not any laws were broken when Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson. Fast forward to 2020, and we're living through the murder of George Floyd. And it's this question of what is the role of policing in America, and can we trust the police to keep us safe? And now we're expanding that not just to our local police departments, but to the federal law enforcement of ICE, although it's hard to call them law enforcement when we watch their brutal tactics, and then layering the National Guard, which should be a state resource. But the fundamental problem here is that where is our trust in government? Who are they trying to keep safe? And under the Trump regime, it feels like the only people that they want to provide safety for are white Christian Americans.
Council President, we are, I think, just less than a minute left, but what would you say to your Democratic colleagues who are here in the United States Senate, who are going to have to vote this week on a funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security? Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has said that Democrats will not vote for this bill, but the pressure is going to be strong on them to hold that, to stand behind the minority leader. Your message to them to maybe stiffen their resolve to bring about some kind of accountability to DHS.
This vote is not about the future of funding for DHS. This vote is about the future of democracy in America, and bring that level of consciousness and those stakes to that vote when you make that choice.